You're nothing but dead weight. Ethan's voice cracked through the noise of clinking glasses. Every head at the family dinner table turned as he pushed back his chair and spat right in his wife's face. Gasps rippled beneath the silver chandelier, glimmering over the long mahogany table. Emma didn't flinch, her wheelchair quietly tucked beneath the table, her hands resting still, her eyes steady. You disgust me, Ethan sneered. If it weren't for my job at Coleman Industries, you'd be living off scraps. His new fiancée, Vanessa, laughed softly, smug, perfect, untouchable. The family followed with the kind of laughter that sounded like knives against glass. But Emma only whispered, barely loud enough for anyone to hear. Be careful what you call useless. They mistook silence for surrender, never realizing that the name on the company's ownership papers was her family's. In that moment, the power shifted, and none of them knew it. What happens when the woman everyone calls worthless turns out to own everything they worship? This is the story of how a husband spat on his wife at family dinner, unaware her parents owned the company he worked for. Hello, family. Welcome back. Before we begin, please click subscribe. Every single click helps us tell stories of courage and truth. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. Because when we share these stories together, we remind each other that even in pain, we can rise. You're nothing but dead weight. Ethan Coleman's voice slammed across the long mahogany table, slicing through laughter and the soft hum of classical music. Every fork froze. The silver chandelier glimmered above him, scattering light over polished glasses and fine china. He stood at the head of the family dinner, chest puffed, eyes blazing with the pride of a man who'd finally gotten what he thought he deserved, a senior position at Coleman Industries. To him, it wasn't just a job. It was proof that he'd climbed above his wheelchair-bound wife, Emma. Emma Coleman sat opposite him, her wheelchair quietly tucked beneath the table, her hands folded neatly on her lap. She had warm brown skin, soft curls pinned behind her ears, and eyes that shimmered with something the others mistook for weakness restraint. Ethan, she said softly, her voice calm. Please, not here. But Ethan smirked, savoring the spotlight. Why not? Everyone here already knows you're worthless. He leaned forward, voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. A mistake I regretted marrying, the guest murmured. Smug smiles floated around the table. His new fiancée, Vanessa, young, flawless, loud in all the ways Emma wasn't laughed into her wine glass. Maybe she's just jealous, Ethan. Not everyone gets a second chance at happiness. That's when Ethan did the unthinkable. He spat on his wife. The sound hit harder than the act itself, a sharp spit in face followed by silence so heavy it bent the air. The humiliation spread across Emma's cheeks, glistening under the chandelier. You disgust me, he said. You've been living off my family for years. It's time you learned your place, Vanessa whispered. Run along, darling. Don't scratch the floors. Laughter erupted, sharp, animalistic, hyena laughter echoing off the walls. Even his mother, Margaret Coleman, gave a stiff, approving nod, hiding cruelty behind a napkin. Emma didn't cry. She sat still, her breathing slow, her mind racing. The echo of that humiliation lingered like a stench, but her expression never cracked. Inside, she felt something else, not pain, not fear, but awakening. Power wrapped in silence. She looked at him once more, memorizing the curve of his mouth, the arrogance in his posture. Then, she whispered, be careful what you call useless. Ethan laughed again. Value? You have none. Emma turned her gaze to the corner of the dining hall, where a small golden plaque read, Coleman Family Charity Dinner, hosted by Coleman Industries. And that's when the irony sliced through her heart like a blade. Her parents' company, the one he bragged about working for, had hosted this event. The same empire her father built, the same one Ethan claimed as his triumph. She wheeled herself back, calm and still, head high. The cool night air waited beyond those double-glass doors, whispering freedom. As she reached the exit, a framed portrait of her late father caught her eye, his kind eyes glimmering in silence. She exhaled once and said under her breath, You really don't know, do you, Ethan? The chandelier flickered, a single light dimming above his head, a quiet thunder foreshadowing what was coming. The camera lingers on the Golden Company plaque as Emma wheels into the cool night air. The letters Coleman Industries shimmer, a silent clue that the empire he worships already belongs to her. The heavy doors slammed behind her, and the cool night air hit like a slap. The echo of hyena laughter from the family dinner still clawed at Emma's ears, her face still wet from the spit in face, but her eyes steady, calm. Outside, the red carpet still shimmered beneath the glow of gold letters. Coleman Industries Charity Dinner. She stared at it, the irony burning deep. The man who called her worthless didn't even know he was standing inside her parents' legacy. A waiter in a black vest rushed after her, voice trembling. "Mrs. Coleman, your coat, ma'am." She took it gently, managing a smile. "Thank you, James." He hesitated. I'm sorry about what happened in there." She looked up at him, eyes soft but sharp. "Don't be." They only spat on what they couldn't see, power wrapped in silence. Her wheelchair quietly rolled down the marble ramp. She moved past luxury cars gleaming under streetlights. Her reflection warped across tinted glass, part ghost, part survivor. Inside the restaurant, applause erupted again. She didn't need to look back to know it was for Ethan. Public mask versus private cruelty. He always loved performing. The cold wind brushed her cheeks. A car waited at the curb, sleek, black, and quiet. Her driver, Mark Bennett, a loyal ex-Marine with a scar running from ear to jaw, stepped out and opened the door. "You okay, Mrs. Coleman?" She gave a faint laugh. "Do I look okay, Mark?" He shook his head. "You look dangerous." She paused, studying him. That was the first honest thing anyone had said to her all night. As the car pulled away, the city lights blurred into streaks. She stared out the window, thinking about the long mahogany table. The silver chandelier glimmered, and Ethan's voice, "You disgust me." Her hand brushed the locket hanging from her neck. Inside it, a photo of her father, smiling in his office. "I kept your promise, Dad." Her whisper cracked like glass. Memory flickered. The day of the accident. Tires screeching, glass shattering, the taste of blood. And Ethan, standing outside the car, shouting, "I can't live like this anymore." Then he left. No goodbye, just headlights fading into the rain. She blinked the memory away. Mark's voice cut through the silence. "Do you want me to take you home, ma'am?" Her lips tightened. "No. Take me to the mansion." Mark frowned. "The old estate?" "Yes," she said. "The one my father built." Her tone sharpened like a knife. "It's time I stopped being quiet." The car turned off the main road, heading toward the Coleman estate, where her father's massive portrait with kind eyes still hung in the foyer. Inside the car, Emma pulled out her phone. The background photo showed her with her parents in front of Coleman Industries headquarters before the accident. Before Ethan, her thumb hovered over a contact named Grace Holloway, her father's trusted attorney, now her silent ally. She pressed call. "Grace," she whispered, voice trembling with both fear and fire. "It's time." "Are you sure?" Grace's voice was calm, professional, loyal. Emma looked out the window, where thunder rolled faintly in the distance, just like the night of the crash. "Yes. Start the process." The line went quiet. Then Grace said, "Once this starts, there's no going back." Emma smiled faintly. "Good." The car slowed as the mansion gates appeared ahead, iron bars glinting beneath the moonlight. Mark glanced in the mirror. "Ma'am, should I turn on the lights?" She shook her head, eyes fixed on the looming shadow of her home. "No. Let the darkness remember me." Lightning flashed over the hill, illuminating the carved sign on the gate, the Coleman Estate Home of Legacy, and beneath it, a faint outline of her father's motto carved in stone. "Patience is the weapon of the wise." Emma's fingers gripped the locket again, whispering, "Then I'll wait, but not forever." The storm outside answered with another distant growl, hinting that the next move wouldn't be quiet. As the mansion gates creaked open, a flash of lightning lit the portrait window, revealing the faint silhouette of a woman inside waiting with a briefcase. Grace Holloway was already there. Thunder rattled the windows as Emma Coleman's wheelchair rolled across the marble floor of the Coleman estate. The air inside the mansion felt alive, thick with memories, with ghosts that refused to rest. The storm outside flashed against the massive portrait of her late father, his kind eyes painted with such realism that it almost felt like he was watching her. "Ma'am, she's here," said Lydia Harper, the longtime housekeeper. Her voice carried both respect and worry. Emma turned her chair toward the grand hallway, where a tall woman in a dark gray suit stood holding a thick folder. Grace Holloway, 42, her father's former legal advisor, now Emma's, her most trusted ally. Her hair was tied back sharply, her expression calm, the kind of calm that usually came before a storm. Grace walked closer. "You called," she said simply. Emma nodded. "It's time." Grace placed the folder on the oak table. Lightning flashed again, revealing the words on the front page. Coleman Industries, ownership and board structure. "Once this begins," Grace warned softly, "there's no going back. Every file, every signature, every name connected to your husband will be exposed." Emma's voice stayed quiet. "Then let it begin." The moment was charged, power wrapped in silence. Grace pulled out document after document, company statements, ownership documents, signed agreements. Emma traced her fingers along her father's signature. "He built this empire from dust," she said. "He trusted Ethan to represent it. Instead, Ethan spat on his own foundation." Lydia stepped forward, her apron trembling. "Ma'am, I always knew he wasn't right for you. But after the accident, the day he left you bleeding on the road." Emma cut her off gently. "Not tonight, Lydia." Her tone wasn't cruel. It was restraint over rage. "I already remember every detail. The day of the accident. Rain, screeching tires, the taste of blood." Her mind played it back like a broken reel. And his voice, not even a goodbye. Just, "I can't live like this anymore." Grace's voice anchored her back. "Your father foresaw this. Before he died, he created a silent clause. You are the majority owner and chairwoman. Ethan was just an employee." Emma's breath caught. For years, she'd let him believe he was her savior, when in truth, he'd been living under her roof on her father's legacy. Grace slid a pen across the table. "One signature here rewrites the board structure of the entire empire. You'll have full authority over executive decisions, including employment terminations." Emma stared at the pen. Her hand trembled slightly, but her eyes didn't. "Then it's time to clean my father's house." The thunder outside answered as she signed her name. Grace looked up. "It begins, Mrs. Coleman." Emma leaned back, her face half lit by lightning. "No," she said quietly. "It continues. They spat on me as if I were dust under their shoes. Now I'll show them what dust can become." The room fell silent. Even the storm paused for breath. Then Lydia whispered, "Ma'am, should I prepare the east wing?" Emma's eyes shifted toward the dark hallway. "Yes," she said slowly. "He'll come here soon. And when he does," her gaze lifted to her father's portrait, the lightning reflecting in her eyes. "Make sure the cameras are rolling." As lightning faded, the faint red glow of an intercom light blinked on the table beside her. Blinking once, twice, then a man's voice came through softly. "Mrs. Coleman, your husband just requested a meeting at headquarters tomorrow morning. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, please, take a second to do it now. Every click, every share, every comment helps us keep telling stories that give strength to women and children who've been broken, forgotten, or silenced. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting a channel, you're standing beside survivors, saying their stories matter. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss a story that could change a life. And in the comments, tell us where are you watching from and what part of this story spoke to your heart. The storm hadn't stopped. Lightning cut through the night as if the sky itself was writing her vengeance across the clouds. Inside her study, Emma Coleman sat under the dim glow of a desk lamp, classical music whispering from an old radio. Piles of company statements, ownership documents, and signed agreements surrounded her like ammunition. Her wheelchair stood firm by the mahogany table, and her fingers traced the embossed gold letters on the folder. Coleman Industries Confidential. Across from her sat Grace Holloway, calm but alert, her sharp mind already anticipating the chaos to come. "The request came in 5 minutes ago," Grace said, sliding her phone across the desk. "Your husband wants a meeting tomorrow morning. He doesn't know yet who he'll be meeting." Emma's lips curved into a faint smile. Let him walk right into his own storm. A sudden crack of thunder rolled through the windows. Poised, patient, dangerous, that's how she felt. For years, Ethan had mocked her silence. Now it would become his undoing. Grace leaned forward. "We should finalize the restructuring tonight. The new board meeting is set for Friday. That gives us 72 hours to prepare the announcement." Emma nodded, flipping through pages, each stamped with her father's signature. "He left everything ready for me. All I had to do was remember who I am." Her voice softened as her eyes moved to the massive portrait of her late father. He used to say, "Patience is the weapon of the wise. I think I finally understand." The tension broke for a moment. Grace poured tea, her hands steady. "You've waited 5 years for this. That's longer than most people can hold on to sanity." Emma smirked. "I lost my legs, not my mind." The lightning flared again, illuminating a wall of newspaper clippings, charity dinners, mergers, and public smiles where Ethan stood beside her pretending to be the hero. Public mask versus private cruelty. Each photo was a scar in glossy print. "I'll make sure every executive who enabled him faces consequences," Emma said. "Start with the Dillards. Employment termination notices by noon." Grace scribbled notes. "And Ethan?" Emma's voice turned to ice. "Not yet. I want him to see the walls close in first." She wheeled toward the window, watching rain slide down the glass like tears. She'd refused to cry. "They spat on me as if I were dust under their shoes. Now they'll learn what dust can become when it learns to fight the wind." The clock ticked past midnight. Mark Bennett, her security chief, entered quietly, a tall man in black with military posture. "Perimeter's secure. Press has no clue where you are." "Good," Emma said. "Tomorrow, I walk back into that building, not as their victim, but as their boss." Grace smiled faintly. "What should I tell the press if they call?" Emma turned, eyes glinting. "Tell them power doesn't scream," she said softly. "It whispers." The storm outside answered her words, shaking the window frames like an applause from the heavens. Then the intercom on her desk buzzed once. A nervous voice came through. "Mrs. Coleman, a man claiming to be your husband just arrived at the gate." Emma's gaze hardened. The calm shattered. "Let him in," she said, "but keep the cameras rolling." As Mark stepped out to open the gates, lightning flickered across the driveway, revealing a familiar figure standing in the rain, holding a single envelope marked "Business Proposal." The front gates of the Coleman estate groaned open, revealing Ethan Coleman standing under the pouring rain, clutching a single envelope marked "Business Proposal." His tailored navy suit was soaked, his hair plastered to his forehead, but his arrogance hadn't drowned with the storm. Mark Bennett, the ex-Marine head of security, met him halfway down the driveway, jaw tight. "You don't have an appointment," he said flatly. Ethan smirked. "Tell my wife I'm here on business. She'll want to hear this." Mark didn't move. The only sound was thunder rolling above them, echoing the tension. Then, the intercom buzzed, and Emma's voice came through. "Let him in." Moments later, Ethan stepped into the grand foyer marble floors, shining under crystal light, portrait of her late father towering over him like silent judgment. He wiped his shoes carelessly on the rug that bore the family crest he never recognized as hers. Emma waited in the study, her wheelchair positioned behind the oak desk, the Coleman Industries folder open in front of her. Her posture was perfect, her calm surgical. "Emma," Ethan began, forcing a smile. "You look better." She glanced up, her tone even. "I wasn't sick. Just recovering from dead weight." He frowned but continued, setting the envelope on the desk. "Coleman Industries is expanding. I've drafted a partnership proposal that could benefit us both. I know people in upper management." "You mean my people?" She cut in gently. He blinked. "Excuse me? You're sitting in my office, Ethan." Her words landed like ice. He laughed, but it faltered when he saw Grace Holloway enter from the side door, clipboard in hand. "What is this?" he asked, glancing between them. Grace smiled faintly. "Mrs. Coleman's calendar is tight. Let's keep this brief." He shifted, confusion flickering. "Mrs. Coleman? What game are you two playing?" Emma leaned forward slightly, her tone still polite. "No game. Just business. You came here for a deal. Go ahead." Ethan swallowed. "Your father's company is failing without new investors. I'm offering a way to strengthen the brand." "My contacts are irrelevant," she interrupted. "I own the brand." He stared at her, searching for humor. "You?" He gave a short laugh. "You're crippled." Emma's voice didn't rise. "I lost my legs, not my mind." The silence that followed was suffocating. Outside, lightning lit the window, framing her like a queen in a throne of light and shadow. Ethan tried to recover. This is absurd. You're bluffing." Grace placed a file in front of him. Company statements, ownership documents, signed agreements bearing Emma's name beside the title, majority owner and chairwoman, Ethan's face drained of color. You can't. I can, Emma said softly. And I will. Business proposal declined. I don't do business with people who spit on me. Grace pressed the intercom. Mark, escort Mr. Coleman out. Ethan froze. Emma, please. But she had already turned away, poised, patient, dangerous. Mark's voice came from the hall. Understood. As Ethan stormed toward the exit, Grace whispered, That went better than expected. Emma's eyes stayed on the portrait of her father. Not yet. He still believes this was mercy. Thunder rolled again, louder this time as if the sky itself laughed at his ignorance. As Ethan was escorted out, Vanessa's car pulled up to the gate, red taillights glowing through the storm. She lowered the window, smirking as she said, You'll thank me for this, Ethan. I booked us a meeting with the chairwoman tomorrow. The irony, sharp as lightning, went unnoticed by both. The glass doors of Coleman Industries hissed open with the sound of authority. Cameras flashed, employees bowing respectfully as Ethan Coleman and his new fiancée, Vanessa Blake, strutted through the gleaming marble lobby. Ethan's navy suit gleamed under the silver chandelier glimmered above, a symbol of power he still believed belonged to him. Smile, Vanessa whispered, her red lipstick flawless. Today, we take control. Ethan smirked. It's just a meeting with the chairwoman. She'll see I'm irreplaceable. At the reception desk, Donna West, Emma's secretary efficient, composed, stood waiting. Mr. Coleman, Miss Blake, the chairwoman will see you now. Vanessa's brows rose. So soon? Impressive. Follow me, Donna said, tone professional, no warmth. They stepped into the elevator. Soft music played, echoing classical piano, but tension filled the air. Vanessa adjusted her blouse, glancing at her reflection. Once we get this deal, Ethan, we're unstoppable. Deal? He murmured, staring at the rising floor numbers. This company should be mine already. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open into a sunlit executive office, vast, elegant walls of glass overlooking the city. Behind the desk sat Emma Coleman, calm, radiant in a cream blazer, her wheelchair positioned with precision behind the oak desk. The silence was deafening. Ethan froze. Vanessa blinked. Wait, you're the chairwoman, Emma finished for her, voice even. Welcome to my office. Vanessa's perfect smile faltered. Ethan's jaw clenched. You can't be serious. Emma's expression didn't change. I warned you once, Ethan. You never listened. Vanessa tried to laugh it off. You mean you own the company? Majority owner and chairwoman, Emma said smoothly. My father built this empire. I just came back to finish what he started. Ethan's face twisted. This is a setup. Grace Holloway entered quietly from the adjoining room, clipboard in hand. No, Mr. Coleman. It's structure. Ethan's fists tightened. You're crippled. How can you run a corporation? Emma's tone was silk over steel. I lost my legs, not my mind. And for the record, power doesn't scream. It whispers. Vanessa scoffed. You can't do this to him. Can't I? Emma pressed a button on her desk. Security footage appeared on the large screen behind her. Ethan spitting in her face at the family dinner, calling her worthless, the table of smug smiles and hyena laughter. Gasps rippled through the hallway beyond the open door. Ethan went pale. You recorded that? No, she said softly. Someone else did. The world deserves to see who you are. She handed a folder to Grace. Effective immediately, all business dealings under Ethan Coleman's supervision are suspended. His parents are being relieved from their positions, severance pay included. Grace nodded. I'll make it official. Ethan slammed his hand on the desk. You'll regret this, Emma. She looked up at him with the calm of a surgeon. It hasn't even started. Thunder rolled faintly outside, a low promise from the storm returning. Vanessa grabbed Ethan's arm, trembling. Let's go. As they turned to leave, Emma's reflection shimmered in the window behind them, still, unwavering. And as the doors closed, she whispered to herself, next comes the silence before the fall. As the elevator doors closed behind Ethan and Vanessa, Grace glanced at Emma's screen. An incoming anonymous email alert blinked red. Credential fraud urgent, Vanessa Blake. The boardroom doors burst open so hard they rattled against the walls. Ethan Coleman stormed in, face flushed with anger. Vanessa Blake trailing behind him in trembling heels. Grace Holloway sat at the far end, flanked by executives from Coleman Industries. Her calmness was surgical, the calm of someone who already knew how this story would end. "Who signed this?" Ethan barked, slamming a document onto the table. "You can't fire my parents. They've been with this company for 20 years. Grace didn't even look up. Correction, they were employees of Coleman Industries. And under the restructuring order signed by the chairwoman, all executive decisions fall under her authority. Vanessa crossed her arms, her voice sharp. "You're destroying livelihoods." "What kind of woman does that?" Before Grace could reply, the intercom crackled. "Bring in Mr. and Mrs. Dillard," Emma's composed voice commanded through the speaker. A moment later, Ethan's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Dillard, entered the room, faces pale. They looked everywhere but at their son. Emma's wheelchair rolled in silently behind them. She wore a black suit jacket, her posture regal, her expression unreadable. The scent of magnolias drifted subtly in with her, a quiet signature of grace and control. "Mr. and Mrs. Dillard," Emma said softly, "your service to this company has been noted and compensated. Severance pay will be deposited today." Mrs. Dillard's voice broke. "Emma, please. This isn't you." Emma met her eyes. "You're right. It's who I became after you all forgot who I was." Ethan's fist slammed against the table. "You're heartless." Her voice remained calm, silk over steel. "Heartless would have been letting this company rot under greed and mockery. Legacy protection is not cruelty. It's discipline." The room was silent, except for the ticking of the wall clock. Even Vanessa's confidence cracked. "You can't do this. You're not strong enough to lead." Emma turned to her slowly. "You'd be surprised what strength looks like when it stops needing validation." Grace leaned forward, tapping the folder on the table. "All sign-offs have been verified. Legal under Clause 14. The Dillards' employment terminations are final." Mr. Dillard's eyes filled with shame. "Son, let's go." But Ethan stayed still, breathing hard, eyes full of disbelief. "You'll regret this, Emma." Emma's lips curved faintly. "It hasn't even started." Lightning flared outside the glass wall, illuminating the boardroom. Shock, the silent stares, the humbled faces, the power shift complete. Grace stood. "That concludes today's session." As the Dillards left, the elevator dinged down the hall. Vanessa's phone buzzed with a new email. She looked down, and her face drained of color. Grace noticed instantly. "Something wrong?" Vanessa hid the screen, voice shaky. "Nothing. Just personal." But on her screen glowed the words in bold red, "Credential fraud, alert, internal investigation opened." Emma caught the reflection in the glass. Her voice was quiet, dangerous. "Grace," she said, "pull her file." As the doors shut behind Ethan and his parents, Grace opened Vanessa's HR file and her eyes widened. "Emma," she whispered, "you need to see this." Outside, paparazzi cameras flashed against the glass. The scandal was already leaking. The HR department of Coleman Industries erupted like a shaken beehive. Phones rang nonstop, screens flashed red notifications, and whispers filled the glass hallway. Grace Holloway pushed through the chaos, a folder in hand, her face pale but determined. Inside the executive suite, Emma Coleman sat composed behind her oak desk, reviewing legal memos. Mark Bennett, her head of security, stood nearby, phone in hand. Grace entered fast. "We have a problem," she said, dropping the folder onto the desk. "Or rather, an opportunity." Emma looked up. "What did you find?" Grace flipped the folder open. Inside were HR reports, falsified qualifications, and forged references, all under Vanessa Blake's name. "Someone sent this anonymously," Grace continued. "Apparently Vanessa never graduated from Stanford. Her credentials are fake." Emma didn't blink. "Anonymous tip?" "Yes. Whoever sent it knew where to hit." Mark frowned. "That means someone inside is feeding her enemies or yours." Emma ignored the tension, flipping through the pages with surgical precision. Each lie unfolded like a confession. Credential fraud exposure. Receipts revealed. She leaned back slowly. "So the woman who called me useless built her identity on a lie." Grace nodded. "And it gets worse. She used those fake papers to secure a managerial position at a Coleman subsidiary last year. That's corporate fraud." Emma's tone stayed steady, power wrapped in silence. "Then she'll answer to the same standards she mocked." Outside, angry investors murmured in the lobby. The whispers had begun spreading across departments. The chairwoman's rival caught in a scandal. Emma pressed the intercom. Call a press conference. Today. Grace blinked. You want to go? Public? Not yet, Emma said. I want her to see the walls closing in first. Mark's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. You might not have to wait, ma'am. She's already outside Vanessa and Ethan. Looks like the press followed them here. Through the glass walls, Emma could see flashes of paparazzi cameras, reporters shouting questions, and the unmistakable glint of media microphones. Vanessa, dressed in white, was trying to keep her smile steady as questions flew. Miss Blake, did you falsify your degrees? Are you facing termination? Her public mask cracked. Emma turned to Grace. Prepare the internal memo. Violations of ethical conduct and professional integrity. Effective immediately, she's suspended. Grace typed quickly. Done. The email sent with a satisfying chime that echoed louder than thunder. Emma stood her reflection tall against the glass. Poised. Patient. Dangerous. Power doesn't scream, she said quietly. It whispers. But when it whispers truth, it destroys lies. Outside, Vanessa's phone buzzed. She glanced down and saw her own face on breaking news. Column executive under fraud investigation. Her knees buckled. Ethan grabbed her arm. We'll fix this, he hissed. She looked up at the top floor, where Emma's silhouette stood watching through the glass. Their eyes met for one silent second, predator and prey. Then Vanessa whispered, She won't stop, Ethan. She's going to bury us. Lightning flashed behind the tower, casting Emma's reflection across the city skyline. And from the corner of the room, Grace murmured, The charity gala is in 3 days. If they show up there, the world will see who truly stands tall. As lightning faded over the tower, Grace adjusted her glasses and whispered, When the lights come on at that charity gala, the next storm won't come from the sky, it'll come from the crowd. The red carpet flashed like lightning, beneath camera bulbs. Reporters shouted questions as luxury cars glided up to the grand entrance of the Coleman Foundation Charity Gala. The silver chandeliers glimmered inside the ballroom, reflecting wealth, beauty, and masks of false pride. Ethan Coleman stepped out first, dressed in a midnight tuxedo, trying to fake confidence. Beside him, Vanessa Blake smiled for the cameras, her trembling hand clutching his arm. The whispers were everywhere: credential fraud, scandal, Coleman executive suspended, truth revealed. Keep smiling, Ethan muttered through his teeth. If we act normal, it'll pass. Vanessa's fake smile stiffened. They're eating us alive, Ethan. Inside, the string orchestra played classical music, the air heavy with perfume and pretense. Wealthy guests greeted them politely, but the glances were sharp, judgmental. Every whisper felt like a knife. At the far end of the room, the spotlight shifted, and there she was. Emma Coleman, glowing in a custom silver gown, her wheelchair customized with chrome edges and soft white leather. The crowd stilled. Cameras turned. Her presence silenced the room like an approaching storm. Her calm smile was elegance itself, power wrapped in silence. She came? Vanessa whispered, panic threading her voice. Ethan clenched his jaw. She's doing this on purpose. Emma rolled gracefully toward the center stage. Grace Holloway followed, carrying a crystal award meant for the keynote speaker. Mark Bennett and security lingered near the back, watching. Emma's voice came through the mic, calm, controlled. Thank you all for supporting the Coleman Foundation. Tonight's event is about truth, resilience, and the rebuilding of lives. The irony struck deep. Everyone knew whose life had fallen apart. As applause began, a voice from the crowd shouted, Is it true your ex-husband's fiancée falsified her records? The ballroom gasped. Ethan froze. Vanessa's lips trembled. Emma paused, her eyes steady. Integrity, she said softly, is the foundation of every legacy. When that's lost, the rest collapses on its own. The crowd murmured. Media microphones rose higher. Vanessa broke. You think you're perfect, Emma? You ruined us. Emma looked at her with pity, not rage. No, Vanessa, you ruined yourself. And then the screens behind Emma lit up Vanessa's falsified credentials, employment records, and video snippets of her mocking Emma in earlier interviews. The audience gasped. Boardroom shock. Whisper network reversal. Ethan grabbed Vanessa's wrist. Who leaked this? Emma's tone was surgical. Power doesn't scream, Ethan. It whispers. And tonight, it whispered the truth. Vanessa's voice cracked. You'll pay for this. Emma's expression didn't change. I already did. 5 years of silence. Tonight, I collect my piece. Security moved forward as cameras swarmed. Vanessa shoved one reporter aside, mascara streaking. Ethan stood frozen in the chaos, surrounded by flashing cameras, gasping guests, and his empire crumbling in real time. Emma turned the mic off, her calm restored. Grace whispered beside her, "It's done." Emma shook her head softly. "No, it hasn't even started." As thunder rumbled outside the ballroom, she looked toward the balcony doors. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "he'll understand what losing everything truly means." As the guests erupted into chaos, Grace leaned close to Emma and murmured, "He'll come tonight desperate." Emma's eyes glimmered beneath the chandelier. "Then let him. I want him to see what silence looks like when it finally speaks." The penthouse door slammed open with a force that shook the walls. Ethan Coleman stumbled inside, his tuxedo soaked from the storm, his face pale under the city lights. Behind him, Vanessa Blake followed, mascara streaked, trembling from the chaos of the charity gala. The TV blared in, the background news anchors replaying the footage of their public collapse. Coleman executives suspended for credential fraud. Coleman Air faces corporate scandal. Ethan grabbed the remote and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the marble floor. "She destroyed me, Vanessa," he shouted. "She planned this from the start." Vanessa clutched her purse tightly. "You told me she was weak. You said she'd never fight back." He turned on her, fury wild in his eyes. "You think I saw this coming? She was supposed to be nothing, a burden. Dead weight." Lightning flashed through the glass walls, painting the city in blue. The empire he once bragged about now looked like a cage of mirrors. He paced, hands shaking. "All the contracts, the investors they're pulling out. Angry investors, collapsing faster than we thought." Vanessa swallowed hard. "What are we going to do?" He stopped. "We? There's no we anymore." His voice cracked into something sharp. "You're part of this disaster. You lied about your credentials." Her voice trembled. "Ethan, please, get out," he snapped, "before they drag us both down." Tears filled her eyes, but she backed away, grabbing her coat. "You used me," she whispered, "and you still lost everything." The elevator door shut behind her. Silence fell. Only the hum of rain against the windows remained. Ethan sank onto the couch, the echo of Emma's voice replaying in his mind from the gala. "Power doesn't scream, Ethan. It whispers." He buried his face in his hands. "You think you won?" he muttered. "You'll regret this." A knock echoed through the penthouse. He froze. Another knock, firm, deliberate. Ethan walked to the door and opened it. Standing there was Mark Bennett, in his black suit, dry despite the storm. His presence radiated control surgeon's precision. "Mr. Coleman," Mark said calmly. "Mrs. Coleman sent this." He handed him a sleek envelope. Ethan tore it open. Inside was a single document, foreclosure notice. 30 days to vacate. His eyes widened. "She wouldn't." Mark's tone was flat. "She already did. Clause 15 of your contract. Unpaid debts. You forfeited collateral." Ethan stumbled backward, the letter shaking in his hand. "No. She can't take everything." Mark looked him dead in the eyes. "Weakness deserves no mercy. You taught her that." Lightning illuminated the room again, casting Mark's reflection beside Ethan's strength versus ruin. Mark turned to leave. "She wanted me to tell you something." Ethan's voice broke. "What?" Mark paused at the door, rain roaring behind him. "She said, it hasn't even started." Then he was gone. Ethan fell to his knees, the envelope slipping from his fingers. The lights flickered once, then went dark. Outside, the storm thundered like applause for karma finally catching up. As the power cut out, the city outside glowed faintly in the reflection of a single building, Coleman Tower. Inside, Emma's silhouette moved past the window. A calm voice echoed in Ethan's mind. "Tomorrow, I'll take the last piece you're clinging to." The Coleman Tower boardroom was still buzzing when Grace Holloway walked in holding the final envelope. Emma Coleman sat at the head of the table, poised in her wheelchair, her calm a contrast to the chaos outside. The city skyline behind her burned gold with morning light, the kind of light that exposes everything. Grace's tone was low but certain. "It's done. Ethan Coleman has been declared bankrupt. The courts approved the seizure order this morning. Every account, every asset frozen." The room fell silent. Emma's fingers rested on the company seal embossed on the folder before her. He built his pride on what never belonged to him, she said softly. Now he gets to learn what silence feels like. Mark Bennett stepped forward, placing a small tablet on the table. The live feed displayed Ethan's empty penthouse, movers clearing furniture, his reflection barely visible through glass streaked with rain. Grace hesitated. Should I proceed with the final notice? Emma's eyes lifted from the screen, calm and unreadable. No. Let silence finish what revenge began. Mark frowned. You're letting him off too easy. Her voice stayed steady silk over steel. No. I'm ending the noise. Revenge feeds on pain, but peace starves it. She leaned back, eyes drifting toward her father's portrait on the far wall. He taught me legacy isn't about destroying others. It's about rebuilding what they broke. Grace smiled faintly. You sound like him. Emma's lips curved. Maybe that's the point. Outside, thunder grumbled one last time before the storm faded into sunlight. The company's monitors began lighting up stock recovery notifications, investor renewals, and positive headlines. Coleman Industries was stabilizing. Power doesn't scream, Grace said quietly. Emma finished the thought. It whispers when it's finally free. She reached for the magnolia bloom sitting in a small vase on her desk. The flower had bloomed overnight, soft white petals spreading against the glass. Magnolia, the symbol of patience and endurance. She brushed her finger along it and whispered, I'm done fighting ghosts. But even peace carried its cost. The intercom buzzed. Ma'am, said Lydia, her housekeeper's voice trembling. A courier just arrived at your residence. It's marked confidential. From Ethan. Grace's head lifted. You want it brought here? Emma nodded once. Yes. Let's see what the past still dares to say. Moments later, Mark entered carrying a plain brown envelope. No label, no stamp, just one line handwritten across the front. For the woman who taught me silence. Emma's eyes lingered on the words, a flicker of hesitation cutting through her composure. He's still trying to speak through ruin, she murmured. Grace leaned in. Do you want me to open it? Emma's hand hovered above the seal, her reflection trembling faintly in the glass. No, she whispered. I will. The blade of her letter opener sliced through the paper with a clean, deliberate sound. Her eyes scanned the first line and widened. Whatever she saw wasn't apology. It was warning. Outside, a low rumble of thunder returned, soft but certain, as if the storm hadn't truly left after all. As Emma's hands tightened on the letter, the magnolia on her desk trembled from a sudden draft, one petal falling beside the envelope. Grace whispered, What does it say? Emma's voice was calm, but her eyes darkened. It says, He's not done. The office lights flickered as Emma Coleman stared at the open letter. The words on the page burned through her calm like acid. You took everything, Emma. My home, my name, my world. But I still have one thing left, my pride. Tomorrow, I'll take back what's mine. Grace Holloway stepped closer, her voice sharp. What does it mean? Emma folded the letter neatly, eyes cold. It means he's planning something desperate. The storm outside intensified, lightning flashing across the Coleman Tower windows like warning beacons. Mark Bennett entered, his presence steady as stone. Ma'am, Ethan's car was spotted outside the building 20 minutes ago. Grace's face tightened. He's not finished. No, Emma said, voice low. Pride never ends quietly. Moments later, Ethan Coleman stood in the lobby, drenched, wild-eyed, and broken. Security hesitated, recognizing his name but fearing his rage. He pushed past them, shouting, Where is she? Where's Emma? The elevator doors slid open with a hiss. Emma's voice came through the intercom, calm as glass. Let him up. Grace turned in alarm. Emma, don't! But Emma's eyes didn't waver. He needs to see the cost of his pride. The elevator rose, each floor humming like a countdown. When the doors opened, Ethan stepped out, breath heavy, suit disheveled, eyes sunken with sleepless fury. Emma! He barked. She faced him, wheelchair positioned behind her desk, the magnolia bloom still beside her papers. You shouldn't have come. He threw the soaked letter onto the desk. You think this makes you powerful? Taking my life? You're just proving me right. You were always cruel underneath. Her expression didn't break. You called me worthless. You spat in my face. You turned my accident into your freedom. Now you call this cruelty? Ethan's voice cracked. I made a mistake. No, she interrupted. You made choices, and every one of them led here. The silence between them was thick, broken only by thunder outside. Ethan's eyes darted to the magnolia. You think peace will save you? It won't. I'll find a way back. Emma leaned forward, power wrapped in silence. There's nothing left to take. His voice softened, desperate. I still have my name. Her hand moved across the desk, sliding a new document toward him. Not anymore. He frowned, scanning it, his face drained of blood. Official filing. Coleman Foundation rebranded under the sole name of Emma Grace Coleman. He looked up, shaking. You wouldn't? I already did, she said. He stumbled back. You took my name. No, she whispered. I reclaimed what was never yours. Lightning illuminated her calm face, poised, patient, dangerous. Ethan's knees gave out. He collapsed onto the floor, the weight of his downfall finally crushing what was left of his ego. As Grace moved to call security, Emma lifted a hand. No! Let him walk out! Mark frowned. You sure? Her gaze stayed on Ethan, broken and small beneath the towering glass walls. He came here to show me his pride. Let him leave with his silence. Ethan looked up at her one last time, voice trembling. You win. Emma's tone was calm, final. No. I survived. As Ethan limped toward the elevator, the storm clouds outside began to part, revealing morning light breaking over the skyline. Grace looked at Emma and whispered, It's over. Emma's eyes softened toward the window. No, she murmured. Now comes the peace I've been fighting for. The morning sun cut through the clouds for the first time in days, pouring over the Coleman Foundation headquarters. Inside, the air smelled of fresh coffee and magnolias. Emma Coleman sat in her wheelchair near the tall glass window, watching the city she had rebuilt calm, vast, and finally hers. It had been 5 years of storms, betrayal, and endurance. Now, everything was quiet. A knock sounded on her office door. Grace Holloway stepped in, smiling gently, holding a small document. It's official, she said. The rebranding is complete. Coleman Industries is now fully registered as the Coleman Foundation for Recovery and Resilience. Emma's eyes softened. A foundation, she murmured. For those who were broken and left behind. Grace nodded. To help accident survivors, widows, and abandoned women rebuild their lives. Just like you said. For a long moment, Emma said nothing. She looked down at her hands that once trembled under humiliation, now steady with purpose. Do you think he'll ever understand why I did it? She asked quietly. Grace hesitated. Maybe not, but everyone else will. The two women shared a long silence, the kind that didn't hurt anymore. Power didn't scream here. It breathed. Mark Bennett entered, holding a newspaper. It's everywhere, he said, laying it on the desk. The headline read, Emma Coleman, the woman who rose from the ground she was spat on. Beneath it, a photo. Emma at the gala in her elegant silver gown, framed by flashing cameras, calm under fire. She traced the headline with her finger, smiling faintly. They finally told the story right. Grace leaned on the desk. You deserve peace, Emma. I already have it, she said softly. Her gaze drifted to the magnolia, bloom beside her tablet, still alive, still perfect. Patience as weapon, peace as legacy. The intercom buzzed. Lydia Harper, her loyal housekeeper, spoke gently. Ma'am, a visitor just arrived. He didn't give a name, just said you'd know his voice. Emma's breath caught for half a second, then she exhaled slowly. Send him in. The door opened. It wasn't Ethan, it was Dr. Hayes, her old mentor, gray-haired now but still carrying the same calm presence. You kept your father's promise, he said, smiling. And his legacy. Emma's eyes glistened. He'd be proud, wouldn't he? More than proud, Dr. Hayes said. You turned pain into power. The moment felt sacred, poised, patient, dangerous only to injustice. She looked out the window one last time. The city glowed gold. Peace replacing vengeance. Light replacing thunder. Her voice was steady, filled with quiet strength. Let silence finish the rest. The camera slowly pulled back from her office, to the skyline, to the plaque outside the building, reading, Coleman Foundation, built on integrity, forged by resilience. A single petal from the magnolia fell to the floor, and for the first time, she smiled, not with triumph, but with peace. Hello, family. Thank you for watching this story of resilience, justice, and rebirth. If you believe silence can be stronger than revenge, tap, subscribe, hit the like button, and tell us in the comments where are you watching from. Your support helps us keep sharing voices that rise from the ground and bloom again.